Hello there, and welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. I hope everything's going well for you here this week. Of course, we had a wonderful week of sports last week, and that's what we're going to be doing each week. We'll be recapping the following week's sports, everything that happened with the kids. And not only that, but we also have an opportunity to be able to talk about what is happening in the future. And what I mean by that is we're getting ready for the next phase of our sports season as soon as basketball ends. As soon as basketball, hockey, and downhill skiing are done, it goes into football, soccer, and volleyball. We'll give you more details on that here on the show. Thank you so much to Lisa Alber of Alber Hearing Services. She's always a big help, and we appreciate her at alberhearing.com, our local audiologist for just about 30 years right here in Franklin County. Thank you so much to my producer, Philippe Simone, right there back at GCTV at the studios on Main Street in Greenfield. Also, we want to say that we will have this on the FCAT down there in South Deerfield. Also, Berniston and Northfield Community Television and Montague Community Television as well. And I want to say once again, Philippe Simone, thank you for everything. Let's get started. All right, back on Tuesday, there was a boys game. It was the Frontier boys. They had to take on a very powerful Hopkins Academy team, and that's exactly what they did last Tuesday. Final score was Hopkins 59 and Frontier 41, an easy win for the Golden Hawks over the Red Hawks. Let's run down some of the scoring in this one so you know what was going on. Looks like the main guy for Frontier in this one was Joe Thompson. He ended up with 16 points. Also, Ethan Machon ended up with 9. DJ Dragovich ends up with 7. Also, Sean Richter ended up with 3, as well as Aiden Hernandez with 5. And Dylan Martin had a couple for Frontier, as Frontier picked themselves up a big, tough one on the road. It was because this team ended up losing by 18 points against the Golden Hawks. And of course, the biggest problem is that Frontier team doesn't really have as much practice time as other teams had, as they lost a week because of the Board of Health telling them that they weren't able to play their first couple games. So they got a little behind on extra time that they needed on the court. Now, well, it'll take time for this team to get together. The only problem is it's an 8-game season. That doesn't really leave a lot of time for these teams to be ready in a very short amount of time. Well, in a girls' game, this was what we call a serious blowout. Final score, the Greenfield girls 69 and Athol 16 in a girls' matchup last Tuesday. Wow. Yeah, it was all Greenfield in this one. And good old Katie Hazelton proving why she is one of the best players in Western Massachusetts. That's right. She ended up with 25 points. Also, Lily Kacklemeyer with 12. Amber Bergeron ends up with 10. Also in this, scoring by Eva Pruitt-Dahl with 6. Tess Rancourt with 6, as well as Alina Sessajanin with 6, and her sister Azamina Sessajanin with 3. And scoring for Athol in this one include Riley Polona. She ended up with 9. Also, Emma Bascalupo with 3, and then 2 apiece from Rosalind Nelson and Lindsay LeBlanc. Once again, Greenfield girls, huge win on Tuesday. They knock off Athol 69-16. Also, girls basketball on Tuesday, it was the Frontier girls. They took on Hopkins Academy. It was all Frontier in this one. Final score was 54-16. A big win for the Red Hawks. Running down the scoring in this one, let's run it down. Leading the way with 13 points was Caitlin Mackin. Also, Kylie LaFord ends up with 10. Also, we have Alina Poland. She ends up with 9. And then other scorers in this one include Sierra Warren with 4. Also, Becca Bridwell. She ends up with 2. Also, we have Candace Wells Robinson with 2. Abby Howard ends up with 4. Charlotte Dulett with 2. Also, Molly Gates with 2. Hannah Mackin with 2. And Bree Strozik with 4. So that's your scoring for Frontier. And also the main scorer for the other team was Casey Earl. for Hopkins. She ended up with 9 of their 16 points. Also, we want to let you know that we have a boys game that happened on Wednesday. It was the Turners Falls boys taking on the Mohawk boys. Score was 55-39 as Turners picked up the victory against the Warriors. Tell you, there was only one real bad quarter in this one for Mohawk, and that was the third quarter, where they were outscored 11-2. Here's the scoring in this one for Turners Falls. 22 points, Marcus Sanders. Also, Brendan Driscoll ends up with 19 in this one. And Brandon Truesdell ends up with 10. We also have Levin Prondecki with 1 and Ryan Duclos with 3. Scoring for Mohawk in this one, leading the way with 14 apiece was Sean Davenport and also Austin Sumner. They both had 14. Also in this one, Tyler Dubriel ends up with 6. Sean O'Day and Matt Poulin each had 2 in the loss for Mohawk. Once again, final score, 55-39. Turners with the win last Wednesday. Well, on Wednesday, there was a big game. It was also the big game on Bear Country 95.3, and that was the game between Mahar and the Pioneer boys. Turned out to be a big game up there in good old Northfield at the mess hall. And here's how that rolled out. It ended up being 12 seconds left in the game, and Matt Lysick ends up shooting a 3-pointer for Mahar, and it went. And then with that said, that ended up being the difference in this one, where Mahar picked up the 55-52 victory on the road. That game went back and forth all night long. That's right. Matt Lysick ended up stepping up to help his squad, and here's how it rolled out in this one. We have scoring. Looks like Jake Tenney ended up with a game-high 19 for the Senators. 14 of those came in the first half. Also, Connor Sluter ends up with 12. Jake Karen with 7. And Lysick himself ended up with 11 on the day. Ryan Potter led Pioneer. He ended up with 14 points. Also, Troy Imam with 13. Also, Jake Hubbard with 10. They were all in double figures. It was a really true, I'm telling you, it really truthfully was a great game, back and forth all night long, back on Wednesday. So great job right there, done by Mahar, picking up the win against a very, very good Pioneer basketball team. Well, in girls basketball, last Wednesday, it was the Mahar girls taking on the Pioneer girls, and the Mahar girls won by a dozen, 45-33. Let's run down the scoring in this one for Mahar. Leading the way with 13 points was Delaney Parker. With 11 was McKaylin Malu. Also in this one, there was scoring from Olivia Patch. She had 2. Kendra Doan had 2. Sienna Moore ended up with 6. Sailor Keggins, she ended up with 9. And Natalie Pololi ended up with 2 for Mahar. Scoring for Pioneer in that girls' game back on Wednesday last week was Emily Tibbetts. She ended up with 9, as well as Laura Collar with 9. Whitney Dunkley ended up with 7. Also 6 points from Sophia Walker. And also Caroline Ring ended up with 2 in the scoring for Pioneer. Once again, 45-33. It was a win by Mahar over Pioneer. Welcome to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report. I'm Bobby C. I hope things are going well for you. We are having a good time, and we're back on here on GCTV. Also, we're here on the FCAT, also on Berniston Northfield Community Television and Montague Community Television. And my guy, I can't go wrong without him, is the one and only Philippe Simone, a great person to be able to keep me going here with this show. And we're glad to be back on the waves again. This is really exciting for me to be able to be back after being off the air for so long, not being able to do this show. I'm so glad we have the opportunity to be able to share this with everyone. Well, back on Wednesday, it was the Turners Falls girls looking for a big win, and they took on the Mohawk girls, and what a great game that was. Final score was 36-28. Turners girls pick up the victory. They also had a very good night of balanced scoring. Here, let's run it all down for you. Steph Peterson ended up with 4. Morgan Tobias with 6. Also, Taylor Green with 6. Lily Spira with 6. 8 points for Maddie Lamatanian. Also, Emily Young with 4. And Abby Holloway ends up with 2. For Mohawk, also a solid night for 2 girls as Maya LaSure ends up with 10. Grace Ward ends up with 10. Also scoring from Michaela Tatro. She ended up with 4. And Rachel Pease and Stella Clark each had 2 in the loss for Mohawk. Once again, a win for the girls over in Turner's. 36-28 over the Mohawk Warrior girls last Wednesday. Well, on Thursday, it surely was a game that I thought was going to be a lot closer than what it really was. And it ended up being a Frontier victory, 84-51 over the Turners Falls boys. And let me tell you how this all rolled out. Well, in the first quarter, final score was 15-13. Frontier was only up 2. And then they went off in the second quarter. They ended up outscoring Turners 28-9 in the second quarter. Now, that is a big number right there. And really getting that 21-point lead at halftime, they just cruised from there to pick up the 84-51 win. And they had every guy on their team score for Frontier. Let's run it down for you. Ethan Michaud ended up with 8. Also, DJ Drag, he ended up with 2. Sean Richter ends up with 16. Aiden Hernandez with 14. Ian Spearance with 7. Patrick Boyden had 6. Sam Schreiber ended up with 6. Ethan Russell with 7. Andre Widmer ends up with 2. Also, Dylan Martin ends up with 8. Joe Thompson ends up with 8. Every single kid on that team scored for Frontier. Scoring for Turners Falls in the loss include Marcus Sanders, another solid night for him. He ended up with 22 points in the loss. Also, Brandon Driscoll ends up with 13. Also, we have in here Brandon Truesdell with 5. J.J. Charles ends up with 4. Josiah Little with 2. Also, Ollie Postera with 1. And Devin Sloan ends up with 4 for Turners Falls. In the loss, once again, Frontier boys roll 84-51 on Thursday. Also on Thursday in boys basketball, the Hopkins boys took on the Athol boys. Easy win for Hopkins Academy. Final score was 68-40. That was an easy win for them. And I want to let you know that with that win and with the numbers that keep adding up for their superstar, Andrew Siaglo, who ended up with 21 in that, he is now 25 points away from getting 1,000 points. He's this close to becoming the next 1,000-point scorer in our bubble. So I just want to let everyone know that is what is going to be happening. Is we want to make sure that people understand that is what's going to happen, is that he is going to be the next kid in the bubble to get 1,000 points. All right. We want to let you know that Marhar ended up having a game against the Mohawk boys in an easy victory. That's right, 57-35. And you know what? It's because they are getting it done. They really, truthfully are getting it done. And I just want to say the one thing that I think is so important is the fact that this Marhar team is the one that's really in a situation right now where them, Pioneer, and the other school I'm going to add in there is Hopkins as the top 3 in the boys' bubble. Now, Marhar lost to Hopkins Academy. They ended up winning against Pioneer. So really, this is really showing the true parity of these 3 teams. And check this out. Pioneer beat Hopkins. So really, it's so weird. Hopkins ends up with a win that they get over Marhar. Marhar beats the Pioneer team, and Pioneer beats Hopkins Academy. These 3 teams are right there in boys, and then the top 3 girls teams are the Frontier girls, the Greenfield girls, and the Marhar girls. But really, the cream of the crop is definitely those girls from Greenfield. They are Talk about a tough group of girls. They know how to play, and they are good. And our producer, Philippe Simone, will be the first to tell you by doing those games that those girls at Greenfield can play hoop. And even with the loss of Raquel Provost, it doesn't matter. They're getting it done. Well, the Mahar boys with that easy win, they were already up 15 at halftime, and they just coasted from there. Want to let you know that I got some highlights for this one. Jake Tenney ended up with 8 points, 9 assists, and 7 rebounds. Also, Jake Karen ends up with 8 points, 6 rebounds. Connor Sluter ends up with 8 points, 8 rebounds. Nice solid night for them. Matt Lasik ends up with 8 points. He also grabbed some rebounds in this one. Noah Chabot ends up with 12 rebounds and 3 points. And Hunter Martin had 7 points for Mahar. Mohawk led the way for them was Austin Sumner with 13. Also, Tyler Dubriel ends up with 10, 9 rebounds and 7 steals. And Sean Davenport with 6 points. One thing that we could say is that Coach Smith said this, and this is a really good quote. We're not winning, but my kids are playing hard. And that is really something that every coach really needs to see. You know, I have the old saying, if there's a team that is just better than you, then they're just better than you. But if you don't put in the effort, then that's where the problem is. How can you get better as a program if you don't put in the effort? And Coach Smith feels like his boys have been putting in the effort up there in the West County. Well, in a girls' game on Thursday, Hopkins girls took on the Athol girls. Final score was Hopkins girls 33 and the Athol girls 16. So a win for the Hopkins girls over Athol. Also on Thursday, it was the Franklin County Tech girls taking on the Pioneer girls. Turned out to be a good game. It was a 6-point win for the Franklin County Tech girls as they picked up their first win of the young season. And speaking of young, that's exactly what they have. They have a young team. There's only 2 seniors on that team. 2. And both those seniors have been a part of this program for a long time. But this new group of kids that are coming in have been able to prove that they're going to be able to be a big help to Coach Joe Gamache. Let's run down the scoring in this one. Leading the way with 11 points for the Franklin County Tech School, honestly, is my niece, and that is Kendra Campbell. Kendra is a transfer from Turners Falls High School to the Franklin County Tech, so she is playing basketball for the Tech for the first time this year, and she's part of that new crew of new kids. She is only a sophomore. So she is good for 3 years with this program. Also, here's another name that you need to remember. Freshman Caitlyn Trudeau. She ended up with 9 points in the win. Senior Jemmy Cruz ends up with 7 points, snagging 5 rebounds. Emily Ryan ended up with 3 points and 8 rebounds. For Pioneer, Sophia Walker with 8, Laura Collar and Charlotte Collar each had 6 in the loss. So once again, Franklin County Tech girls pick up a win. They win against the Pioneer girls. Final score was 32-26 back on Thursday. That I can tell you that we do know this right now, that because of the inclement weather and not good weather for your Tuesday, the game that is supposed to be on Bear Country 95.3 between the Tech girls and the Mohawk girls, that game will be played on Wednesday. It's already been moved. That game will be Wednesday, not on Tuesday, because of the snowstorm that will be coming in. We are recording this on a Monday afternoon for you. So once again, this upcoming week, the game already postponed 1 day to Wednesday, and that is the game between the Franklin County Tech girls hosting the Mohawk girls. And the same thing, the Franklin County Tech boys, them and Mohawk boys will be moved to Wednesday as well. Don't know about all the other schools, though, but I do know about that. Well, Delaney Parker ended up with a double-double, and she helped Mahar end up beating the Mohawk girls. Wow, an easy win for them, 63-48. With that 15-point win, Michaela Melu ends up continuing her strong play. She ends up with 17 points. Of course, Delaney Parker has her 16 points and 12 assists. How solid is that? Also, we have Maya LaSure. She scored 16 points for Mohawk, knocking down 4 3-pointers. Also, Hannah Gilbert ends up with 12 points. Michaela Tatro and also Grace Ward had 6 points in the loss. really a solid day right there for Mahar girls again as they knock off the Mohawk girls. And Mohawk girls still having a shining star, Maya Shore. She has been pumping up the points for their team. She ended up with, once again, 16 points in the loss. Also, we want to let folks know that on Thursday, the Frontier girls took on the Turners Falls girls in a game that was played down in South Deerfield, where the Frontier girls picked up the 36-19 victory. With that win, Frontier girls continue their winning ways. They're going to get into a tough game soon, and that tough game for them is going to be when they have to play the Mahar girls and they have to play the Greenfield girls. That is when we're going to be able to see where this Frontier girls team is. They got a good team, and they got girls that have been getting it done. Let's run down the scoring in this one for Frontier. It was Caitlyn Mackin with 10. Also, it was Kylie LaFord. She ends up with 9. Sierra Warren with 8. Also, Becca Bridwell had 1. 2 points from Abby Howard. Also, Charlotte Doulette ends up with 4, and Bree Strosick with 2. For the Turners Falls Thunder, the leading scorer were only 4 points by Steph Peterson and by Dylan Burnett. Also, 3 points in this one from Maddie Lamatanian and 2 points from Morgan Tobias, Lily Spira, Avery Tila, and also Holly Myers. So there you go. Frontier girls with the 36-19 victory. Well, one thing that's turned out to be pretty popular up there on the hill at Berkshire East is skiing, downhill skiing. And when you hear the name Loomis, you think of Taylor and her sister Amber. They are legit players. Addie Loomis. And I'm gonna say one thing about these two girls. They have been solid all year long, but Taylor has won 3 weeks in a row as the number 1 downhill skier for her team. That's right, number 1. And let's run it down for you. Here's how it rolls. When she ended up leaving the gate, she ended up with a time of 34.40 seconds and ends up with first place this past Thursday. How'd her sister do? Well, she ended up in 4th place. Also, there was another one from Mohawk who did well, and that was Ellie Pinkham and Emily Sissom. Those 4 ladies all made the top 10 for Mohawk as they end up continuing to cruise in downhill skiing over at Berkshire East. Another solid performance once again from Taylor Loomis, 3 for 3 on the year. Well, it turned out to be a nice, easy win for the Greenfield boys basketball team back on Friday night. It was a makeup game against the Athol boys. Final score on the road, Greenfield 60 and Athol 33. With that victory, Greenfield picks up a win that they really needed this year. They lost a tough one that they had a chance to win against Pioneer at home. They also got beat up by Mahar earlier this year as well on the road, but they picked up that win against Athol. And I want to let you know that there was a shining moment for one of the young fellas who was able to play, and that is Johnny Breer, who picked up his first varsity points as a varsity player for Greenfield High School. Johnny ended up with 4 points for Greenfield in that win. Congratulations goes out to him. He is going to be a big help to that Greenfield basketball team in the future. He's a big body down low, and I think that Johnny Breer is going to be a big help to GHS basketball in the future. Well, let's run down how the scoring went in this one. David Carey ended up with 16. Also, Mason Meadows ends up with 14. Also, looks like the Sacker ends up with 5. We also have Sam Gibson ends up with 6 in this one. We have Henry Zwart with 5. And we can't forget about Mav Ward. He ends up with 9 in that win over Athol. So congratulations to the Greenfield boys on picking up that victory. Also, to wrap up our show, and Philippe Simon was there with his camera, it was the big hockey game. That was the GHS hockey. They end up with a 4-2 win over Amherst. And let me tell you something. That Greenfield hockey team is really good. They have a good group of kids that know how to play. Amherst got a little feisty out there first and picked up the first goal in that first period. And then it was all Greenfield after that. And Greenfield just pretty much dominated after that early goal that was scored by the Hurricanes. It didn't matter, though, because Greenfield picked up the 4-2 win on Saturday night. And another nice job between the pipes for Mr. Bordeaux. And we can't forget about the guy who was the shining star with a couple of goals for GHS, and that was Aiden Roach. So there you go. Awesome job right there by the one, the only GHS hockey team. And of course, I know that Philippe has been told, but they're trying to be able to do Saturday hockey over there at the rink over at the Collins Mullen Arena. And I just want to say thank you to him. I want to say thank you to Doc. He did a great job with announcing the game. Doc Bordeaux, great job, my friend. And of course, the crew that was there to be able to make it happen, because it was wonderful for me to sit here on Saturday night and enjoy the game on GC TV. I loved it. That's right. I got my GC TV right here at my house in Berniston, and I was able to enjoy that hockey game Saturday night. So thank you to Doc. Thank you to Philippe for being able to give us that coverage. It really was a great game. Yeah, and by the way, the best part is it was an FCAP production, which, by the way, Murph, you are the man, Kevin Murphy, putting all this stuff together. Give me some love. Give us some love here. Yeah. All right. Hey, there you have it. That's it for our wrap. It's not a very long show anymore because we don't have all these different schools that we have going on with all these games and all this action. It's so different this year. But hey, we got in our weekly update. You're updated on what's going on what's happening here in Franklin County sports. We'll do it again next week. From my producer, Philippe Simone, and all of us at GCTV, take care of yourself and each other. And thank you for tuning in to the Franklin County Varsity Sports Report.